Jiang Haoyi was just an ordinary 19-year-old high school student. His school life was simple. Wake up in the morning, head to school, and that was it. Haoyi liked living this way, a peaceful life where no one paid him much attention. It felt free and calm, and he thought it would be enough if things stayed like that forever. One day, while Haoyi was in class studying, a beautiful girl suddenly entered his classroom. Her name was Zitao. The male students were shocked by her unexpected appearance. Everyone wondered why Zitao had come to their class and couldn't help but admire her figure. Out of nowhere, Zitao grabbed Haoyi's hand while he was daydreaming. Haoyi was stunned and couldn't understand why Zitao was holding his hand. To his surprise, Zitao looked embarrassed. She placed Haoyi's hand on her stomach and declared that she was pregnant with his baby. Haoyi was dumbfounded. He couldn't comprehend what Zitao was saying. His classmates immediately erupted in anger, shocked that someone like Haoyi could have wronged a girl like Zitao. Cameras flashed as they took pictures of him, and some even called him a scumbag. Everyone was in disbelief that Haoyi could do something so outrageous. Zitao claimed that Haoyi's baby in her belly was already 3 months old and asked if he could feel it when he touched her stomach. Furious, Haoyi told her to stop talking as if it were true. He demanded to know who she really was and why she was claiming to be pregnant with his child since he didn't even know her. His classmates didn't believe his protests. They were livid and even threatened him. Desperate, Haoyi pleaded for a chance to explain, but Zitao cut him off. She told him there was no need to explain anything because she and their baby trusted him. Frustrated, Haoyi grabbed Zitao's hand and dragged her out, telling her they needed to talk somewhere else. News about Zitao's pregnancy quickly spread online, and Haoyi became the center of everyone's ridicule. Wherever he went, people followed him, calling him names and shouting insults. Haoyi had to hide just to get away from all the chaos. While he was hiding, Zitao suddenly appeared in front of him with a smile. She teased him, saying the baby in her belly told her that Haoyi's legs were short and he ran too slowly. She even warned him to be careful around her. Exhausted, Haoyi begged her to stop with the nonsense. That same day, the school broadcast system called for Haoyi to report to the teacher's office immediately. Feeling like he was in serious trouble, Haoyi told Zitao to wait for him on the rooftop. As he ran to the office, his classmates swarmed him, chasing him down the hallway. Strangely, Zitao watched from afar and thought Haoyi looked incredibly cool while being pursued. The students continued their chase, throwing objects at him to try and stop him. Confused about why they wouldn't let up, Haoyi spotted the janitor's cleaning supplies. Without hesitation, he grabbed a mop and stood his ground. The students laughed, mocking him for holding nothing but a mop handle. However, Haoyi threw the handle, knocking down several students in one hit. They groaned in pain, shocked by the unexpected attack. Haoyi argued that he was forced to do it since they wouldn't leave him alone. Suddenly, someone pulled him into the girls' restroom. It was Tang Suan, the sports captain, and her friends. They beat him up mercilessly. Suan demanded that Haoyi explain the news that had gone viral online. Haoyi insisted that he didn't know anything. Furious, Suan accused him of being heartless and not understanding her pain. Instead of responding, Haoyi's eyes drifted towards Suan's chest, and she punched him immediately. Annoyed, Suan reminded him that he used to call her by name when they were together, yet now he acted like he didn't know her. Her friends questioned why Suan never told them about Haoyi before. They were angry at Haoyi for making Suan cry and prepared to beat him up again. However, Suan stopped them, saying it was between her and Haoyi and they shouldn't interfere. Suan leaned down close to Haoyi, her voice suddenly soft and sweet. She told him to come clean about his relationship with Zitao, or she would do something much worse to him. Haoyi sat there, completely overwhelmed, unsure of how to escape the chaos surrounding him. Haoyi couldn't understand why Suan was doing this to him. Still, he insisted that he really wasn't close to Zitao. Hearing that, Suan hit Haoyi again. When the restroom door finally opened, Suan and her group walked out with Haoyi trailing behind them. Outside, the students were still waiting for him. Just as Haoyi stepped out, Lin Yuan, the smartest student in school, suddenly appeared, ran toward him, and hugged him tightly. Haoyi was bewildered, unsure of what was about to happen next. Yuan told Haoyi to come home with her because Xiaohong and Xiaoming missed him so much. Haoyi was completely confused. He had no idea who Xiaohong and Xiaoming were. Without warning, Yuan hit him with a book, calling him a traitor for cheating on her, even forgetting their 2 children. Just as Yuan was about to hit him even harder, Suan intervened, grabbing Yuan's hand in time. Suan declared that she was the only one allowed to do that to Haoyi. Annoyed, Yuan snapped back, saying that since the earth was formed, Hao Yi was destined to be hers. Students around them started snapping pictures of the argument between Yuan and Suan. While they were busy fighting, Hao Yi saw an opportunity and bolted. One of the students quickly noticed him escaping and alerted the others that Hao Yi was running away. Hao Yi ran for his life, but no matter where he went, people were chasing after him. With no choice, he dashed up the emergency stairs and headed to the rooftop. Zitao was already waiting for him there. Meanwhile, the students continued to chase him up to the roof, followed closely by Yuan and Suan. Yuan stopped abruptly when she saw Zitao standing there. Suan, on the other hand, demanded that Hao Yi explain everything immediately. Feeling overwhelmed, Hao Yi was cornered by everyone, especially those three girls. He didn't even understand what was happening anymore. Desperate, Hao Yi shouted that he didn't know any of the three girls. He walked all the way to the edge of the rooftop and threatened to jump off to prove his innocence. However, the crowd, already furious with him, charged forward to grab him. Left with no other choice, Hao Yi let himself off the building. As he fell through the air, Hao Yi thought the nightmare would finally end and it would all be over. But to his shock, something strange happened. A mysterious force emerged from the sky. Everything around him froze, and Hao Yi realized that time itself had stopped. Suddenly, he saw a beautiful girl appear in front of him. She looked at him and said he seemed way too calm while falling. She had actually hoped he would wet his pants. The girl introduced herself as the goddess of love and immediately asked Hao Yi if he had ever eaten a love chocolate. Confused, Hao Yi was thrown off by her words. He wondered if she was referring to a cake he had eaten before. He remembered seeing a piece of cake on the rooftop, possibly left there by someone. Since it would have been a waste to leave it, he decided to eat it. The goddess of love explained that the chocolate cake he ate had the power to make anyone fall in love. If Hao Yi ate it with a girl, then that girl would fall in love with him. Hao Yi was horrified as he realized he had shared the cake with the girls, and now they were all after him. He couldn't believe something so ridiculous was happening to him. Still in disbelief, Hao Yi asked himself if the goddess of love really existed in this world. But there she was, right in front of him as he fell from the rooftop. The goddess of love introduced herself as Mai Tata, explaining that she was still in training. Tata told Hao Yi he didn't need to thank her, and cheekily added that he should enjoy the happiness of being surrounded by women. Frustrated, Hao Yi snapped at Tata, yelling that his peaceful life had been completely ruined because of her. He told her that if he hadn't run away, he might have been killed, or worse, expelled and forced to become homeless. Hao Yi felt like his life was over. Tata, unimpressed, called him dramatic and insisted that his problems weren't impossible to fix. As long as Hao Yi could fulfill their wishes, the magic would disappear and Hao Yi would finally be free from them. According to Tata, it was really simple. Suddenly, Tata caught a whiff of food and was distracted. Hao Yi, irritated, said that if it was so easy, she should do it herself. Time, which had been stopped, resumed once again. The students chasing Hao Yi were in disbelief that he had actually jumped off the building. They rushed to check below, but he was nowhere to be found. They kept searching. Suan was baffled about where Hao Yi could have gone. She looked around but still didn't find him, and in the process, she bumped into Yuan. The tension between Suan and Yuan flared again as their rivalry over Hao Yi grew. Meanwhile, Hao Yi was hiding behind a tree, catching his breath as he scanned for Zitao. He was worried something terrible might happen to her. He imagined Zitao crying over him, heartbroken that he had so many other women in his life, and wondering what would happen to the baby she claimed to be carrying. Zitao, still on the rooftop, was indeed crying. When Hao Yi finally reached her, panting, Zitao was shocked but relieved to see he was okay. Hao Yi told her to meet him somewhere tomorrow. Zitao smiled and teasingly asked if this meant he was asking her out on a date. The next day, Hao Yi took Zitao to a hospital for a checkup. As they sat in the waiting room, people gave them judgmental looks. Some whispered about how kids these days had no self-control and caused all sorts of problems. Zitao leaned on Hao Yi's shoulder, and Hao Yi, staring at her, realized how cute she looked up close. Zitao asked him to take her to get the test results. Before Hao Yi could respond, Zitao commented on how kind he was and said she was sure he would make a great dad someday. The doctor suddenly appeared with the results, confirming there was no baby in Zitao's stomach. Hao Yi was ecstatic to hear this. Zitao, however, was puzzled, insisting she had felt a baby inside her. She quickly concluded it was her fault and vowed to try harder next time to get pregnant. She even suggested they buy something to speed up the process, claiming she knew all about it. Hao Yi quickly changed the subject, suggesting they visit her family to clear things up. When they arrived at Zitao's house, Hao Yi was stunned. The place was a grand mansion, practically a castle. Servants greeted Zitao, addressing her as princess. That was when Hao Yi realized Zitao came from an incredibly wealthy family. Hao Yi couldn't wrap his head around why someone as perfect as Zitao wanted him to fulfill her wishes. Zitao told Hao Yi she would always remember this day as the day he came to propose to her. Hao Yi couldn't even fathom it. Even in his wildest imagination, he was still a loser. He silently acknowledged that his life was nothing but a mess. Zitao, on the other hand, said that even if her father rejected him, she'd still be happy because Hao Yi at least tried. A maid arrived to greet Zitao and asked who Hao Yi was. Zitao was about to call in her boyfriend, but Hao Yi quickly covered her mouth. He introduced himself as a close friend of Zitao's father instead. The maid greeted Hao Yi warmly. Hao Yi was taken aback to learn that Zitao lived alone. The maid explained that Zitao's father worked abroad and never returned home, and she pitied Zitao for it. Hao Yi then decided it would be better to leave since Zitao's father wasn't around. However, the maid insisted that Hao Yi stay, saying Zitao specifically asked him not to leave. Just then, one of Zitao's guards arrived with news from the school. The school had called and reported that a student named Hao Yi had kidnapped Zitao. Hearing this, Hao Yi began sneaking out of the house, trying to make his escape. The maid said that Hao Yi's name sounded familiar to her. Zitao's guards, however, were furious at Hao Yi and prepared to beat him up. Hao Yi pleaded with them, insisting that they had misunderstood the situation, but the maid urged them to attack him anyway. Hao Yi ended up getting severely beaten. Zitao arrived just in time and ordered her guards to release Hao Yi, declaring that she and Hao Yi were in love. The guards hesitated momentarily, but one of them scoffed and said that if Zitao truly loved someone like Hao Yi, the world might as well be ending. He instructed the others to finish Hao Yi off. Once again, Hao Yi was brutally attacked. Zitao shouted that she didn't care if Hao Yi was poor or unemployed. Even if the best he could do was support her as a scavenger, she would still marry him. Despite her words, the guards showed no mercy and continued to pummel Hao Yi. Through her tears, Zitao vowed to try harder next time, even though she wasn't pregnant anymore. She encouraged Hao Yi to give it his best tomorrow as well. Hearing this, the guards became even more enraged and intensified their assault on Hao Yi. Zitao finally pleaded with them to stop torturing Hao Yi. By now, Hao Yi had been thrown against a wall and gasping for air, begged Zitao to stop talking. Zitao quickly pulled Hao Yi to his feet and dragged him into her room, slamming the door shut behind them. The guards pounded relentlessly on Zitao's door, demanding to know what Hao Yi was doing inside. Zitao refused to open it and declared that her love for Hao Yi was pure and true. Hao Yi panicked, clamped his hand over Zitao's mouth, begging her to stop shouting. The guards outside kept banging on the door, warning Zitao not to fall for Hao Yi's tricks. Meanwhile, Hao Yi let out a frustrated sigh and accidentally noticed an old calendar sitting on Zitao's desk. On the calendar was a note marking the best day ever, the day she had lunch with her father. The guards continued to hammer on the door, while the maid called Zitao's father to report the incident. However, her father brushed it off, saying it didn't matter as long as Zitao was safe. He even told the maid to stop bothering him with such trivial issues. In a sudden burst of determination, Hao Yi flung the door open and snatched the maid's phone. He yelled into it, declaring that he was the one who had kidnapped Zitao and daring her father to come meet him. The guards, surprisingly impressed by Hao Yi's courage, decided to prepare a meal for him so he wouldn't be hungry when meeting Zitao's father. Not long after, 2 helicopters landed in the yard and several cars arrived to secure the property's entrance. Hao Yi braced himself, convinced that wealth could only be achieved through hard work. He knew he had come too far to back down now. Zitao's father finally arrived at the house, greeted with reverence by the guards as they lined up to welcome him. Zitao's father arrived in front of his house with his subordinates, and all the bodyguards respectfully greeted him. Hao Yi could feel the intimidating aura emanating from Zitao's father. Zitao's father remarked that Hao Yi was quite bold for summoning him. He then ordered his subordinates to keep an eye on Hao Yi. Hao Yi, feeling relieved that perhaps nothing would happen, quickly had his hopes dashed when Zitao's father commanded his men to teach Hao Yi a lesson. Once again, Hao Yi was surrounded and beaten up. Zitao tried to intervene, telling her father that Hao Yi was innocent. She showed him the results of her checkup, proving that she wasn't pregnant. This made Zitao's father stop his men, and he turned to Hao Yi, asking about his true intentions. Hao Yi then asked if he hadn't claimed to have kidnapped Zitao, would Zitao's father have come home to see her at all, or would he have just continued forgetting about her? Zitao's father was shocked by Hao Yi's words, and Zitao herself was deeply moved. Hao Yi continued, explaining that Zitao still needed her father, but her father couldn't see that. While Zitao's father had given her a luxurious house, personal bodyguards, and servants, and ensured she never went hungry, was that really what Zitao wanted? Hao Yi passionately argued that what Zitao truly desired was her father's love. Did you ever give her that love? Hao Yi shouted. Zitao was overwhelmed with emotion at Hao Yi's words. Zitao's father, furious, grabbed Hao Yi by the collar and yelled, "What do you know about love? Do you think money grows on trees?" Hao Yi pleaded with him to stop hurting his own family. He then showed Zitao's father a calendar from the previous year, marked as Zitao's best day. It made her father remember a joyful moment they'd shared together during a simple lunch. It dawned on him that what Zitao wanted most was to be with him. To others, that moment might not have seemed like much, but to Zitao, it was her biggest dream. Hao Yi asked Zitao's father to think it over. Even the maids and bodyguards were moved to tears by Hao Yi's sincerity. They praised him, saying he was a truly good person. Hao Yi then said his goodbyes, running off quickly in an attempt to escape. However, it turned out he was just running in circles and ended up right back where he started. Zitao caught up to him and placed a hand on his shoulder. Confused, Hao Yi asked how she caught up so fast. Zitao replied that she had simply taken the back door. Zitao thanked Hao Yi and kissed him, but suddenly, she disappeared. Hao Yi was stunned and wondered what had just happened. Had Zitao vanished? Out of nowhere, Tata appeared, explaining that Zitao hadn't disappeared. Instead, her magic had worn off. Tata congratulated Hao Yi for fulfilling Zitao's wish. Meanwhile, Zitao lay asleep in her bedroom. Her father approached her and asked if she'd like to have lunch with him. Tata admitted she was surprised Hao Yi resolved everything so quickly. Hao Yi grumbled that he simply hated overly complicated problems. He left in a hurry, muttering that his life had nearly ended because of Zitao, but was thankfully resolved in just 2 days. At least he didn't have to see Zitao sad anymore. Tata smiled at Hao Yi's seriousness. The next day, on his way to school, Hao Yi tripped and found a flyer that featured him being sought after as Yuan's husband. Flyers were scattered everywhere around the school. Hao Yi was dumbfounded and wondered what on earth was happening now. He didn't know when all this trouble would finally end, and even compared himself to the legendary king of a harem who achieved eternal happiness. If only that were true for him. Trying to avoid attention, Hao Yi covered his face and crept toward his classroom. He even resorted to crawling to his seat. Meanwhile, a girl was seen searching for Hao Yi, eventually discovering which class he was in. Hao Yi finally made it to his desk, but suddenly caught a familiar fragrance. He looked up to see Zitao standing in front of him, asking if he wanted to go out with her. Hao Yi was shocked and asked how Zitao could remember him. She smiled and replied, "How could I ever forget you?" She then thanked Hao Yi for everything he had done for her. Panicking, Hao Yi called out for Tata, who immediately appeared, freezing time. Hao Yi demanded to know what was going on, pointing out that Tata herself had said Zitao's magic had disappeared once her wish was fulfilled. Tata sheepishly admitted that she had forgotten to tell him something because he had left too quickly the day before. When the love magic ended, the enchanted memories also disappeared, but normal memories remained intact. Everything that happened during those 2 days would not be forgotten by Zitao, which meant that whatever feelings Zitao had for Hao Yi came from her heart alone. Before Hao Yi could complain to Tata about all the trouble, Tata suddenly disappeared and time resumed as normal. Just as Zitao was about to ask why Hao Yi had mentioned Tata, Hao Yi quickly brushed it off, saying it was nothing important. Zitao concluded that Hao Yi had agreed to go out with her. Out of nowhere, someone appeared and threw a knife that narrowly missed Hao Yi. The girl's name was Aishen Shili. She called Hao Yi honey and asked why he hadn't invited her on his date. Shili then interrogated Hao Yi about his relationship with Zitao. Terrified, Hao Yi stammered that it was all a misunderstanding. Shili, however, declared that she would clear up the misunderstanding herself. Without warning, she kissed Hao Yi fiercely on the lips, shocking their classmates, who shouted about how daring the two of them were. Shili then smugly asked Zitao if she understood now that Hao Yi belonged to her. Hao Yi, rendered helpless by Shili, desperately asked for help. Just then, Shili's mother appeared and smacked a bag into Shili's face, telling her to stop what she was doing. Shili, still recovering, asked what her mother was doing there. Her mother was stunned that Shili had traveled all the way from America just to see Hao Yi. Hao Yi nervously greeted Shili's mother, but both Shili and her mother immediately told him to be quiet. Shili's mother demanded that Shili return home, but Shili refused, boldly claiming that no one could stop her from being with Hao Yi. Shili's mother, clearly disapproving of her daughter's relationship with Hao Yi, insisted that Shili give up on him. The two began to fight right in front of everyone. Shili's mother easily won, leaving Shili lying on the ground completely defeated. The students wasted no time snapping photos of the spectacle. Shili's mother ordered her subordinates to take Shili away immediately. As she was about to leave, Hao Yi nervously asked if she was really going to take Shili back to America. Shili's mother simply replied, inviting someone and asking them to leave are two very different things. She then ominously advised Hao Yi to consider buying insurance. Terrified, Hao Yi muttered that his life might soon come to an end. As he turned around, Tata suddenly appeared in front of him, startling him. Frustrated, Hao Yi scolded Tata for sneaking up on him and told her not to pop out of nowhere like a ghost. Despite calling her sweet-looking like a goddess, he grumbled that her behavior was as scary as a ghost. From a distance, Zitao noticed Hao Yi seemingly talking to himself and wondered what he was doing. Curious, she approached him. Meanwhile, Tata asked Hao Yi if Shili had also eaten the magic chocolate. Hao Yi sighed, saying that Shili had always been like that, his scariest childhood friend. According to Hao Yi's parents, Shili and he had played together since they were babies, and they even went to the same grade school and middle school. Just thinking about it made Hao Yi's head hurt. Suddenly, Hao Yi felt someone behind him. Zitao, in a panic, tried to hide behind 3 leaves, which was of course useless because Hao Yi could still see her clearly. Embarrassed, Zitao said she didn't want to interfere with Hao Yi and Shili's relationship since they were childhood friends. Gathering her courage, Zitao told Hao Yi to forget about their plans for tomorrow, but Hao Yi, confused, said he had forgotten to discuss the time and place for their meeting. Apologizing, he admitted he wasn't good at choosing locations and asked Zitao to let him know if she had a place in mind. Hearing that, Zitao smiled and walked away. Tata, watching everything unfold, commented that Hao Yi seemed to be starting to like Zitao after everything they had been through. Annoyed, Hao Yi shot back that it was all Tata's fault for setting this up in the first place. He warned Tata to stop following him and stormed off. Hao Yi made his way toward the school rooftop, trying to clear his head. But on the stairs, he bumped into Suan. Without a word, Suan slapped him and ordered him to follow her immediately.